Chapter 8, we're going to talk about careers that are possibilities for textiles and apparel. And again, we want to start off with why is this important to family and consumer sciences? So, clothing is a big part of our lives. We've talked before about some of the other aspects of life. So, clothing and textiles is one of those things that is part of our everyday life we go through. You can't go through it in a day without having someone in the textile or apparel field being affecting your daily life. Our clothes give off our first impression, how we present ourselves. It can help us express our personality. When you think about careers, it's really important what we wear based on what kind of job we're going to be looking for. So you might be trying to find a professional type of job in an office setting, or you're going to be wearing business suits and things like that. Textile and apparel is very important in that aspect of what kind of fabrics are right for those types of professional situations. Maybe you're looking for a job in the medical field or something like that. So what you wear is representational of what kind of job you're going to be having. Also, clothing is a basic human need. So when you look back at that pyramid, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs that we studied before, clothing is one of those basic human needs that we have to meet. We cannot go up the triangle and be able to fulfill higher order needs without those basic things being met. So food, water, shelter, clothing is included in that. So when we're talking about quality of life, clothing is a big part of that. So people that are going into these careers really do make an impact on people's day-to-day lives. You might not think this is, being in the fashion industry might not sound like, the most important job to strengthen families, but really, having that basic human need met of having shelter and clothing, it protects, our bodies, and it's a very important part of our daily lives. So we've got the two sections of this industry. So we've got the textile industry and the apparel industry. Textiles would be the research, development, creation of the actual fabrics. So we've got the synthetic fabrics that are kind of man-made. They create those, and then the natural fabrics like cotton or something like that that are created from things that are found in nature. Um, so the textile industry is focused on just developing, researching, figuring out what kind of fabrics work best for which things, always improving on those fabrics. Just so the basic fabric is the textile industry. Then the apparel industry takes that fabric or the textiles and creates then clothing and things like that out of it. So that's why there's two different sections that we're going to be talking about in this chapter. So a textile scientist is one of these people that researches and figures out what's the best fabrics for different things. And it's not just clothing that textiles would feed into. When you think about like the medical field, for example, they're going to use textiles in figuring out different products that they could use for surgeries or for using in their hospital rooms or things like that, that is going to promote health and wellness in the medical field. You've also got the protective aspect of it. So when you look at things like that, the Army might be using the best types of fabrics to use for their uniforms, their bulletproof vests, or their helmets and things like that that are protecting their bodies in these really dangerous situations. So it's much more than just a t-shirt that you throw on in the morning when you're thinking about the textile industry. USM actually has a lot of research in football helmets. That's been kind of cutting edge lately. It's something to be proud of for our university, that we've been doing research on the best way to make the football helmets to protect football players, since concussions have been such a big problem recently in football at all ages, younger, high school, all the way up to the professional football players. So textiles is part of that, in figuring out the different ways to make the football uniforms safer for those athletes. Okay, then we've got textile design. So that's going to be creating the way the fabric looks. So just keeping up with different trends of what's popular. This is probably going to date me a little bit. Y'all will see how old I am. But I remember, I don't know, when I was growing up, when it became kind of the norm to put a little bit of spandex into certain fabrics because when I was younger, that wasn't really a thing. So like jeans or t-shirts or whatever, it would just be made of the normal cotton, denim, whatever. But then as I was, getting into like my teen years, they started putting spandex into the cotton fabric so that it would give a little more stretch. And, the jeans became a lot more comfortable. So jeans today being a little more stretchy versus the super stiff, uh, Levi denim that I had grown up with when I was a kid. It does make a difference in how the fabric feels on your body and how it looks. So that's just one example I could think of as far as textile design. And they put a little bit of spandex into some of those fabrics to give them a little more stretch. It provided more comfort and better design. All right, then we've got different employees in the textile industry. So we've got the textile production. So those are the ones that are actually like doing the process of creating the fabric. So they're researching things, they're looking at quality control, making sure that that everything is correct when the fabrics are being made. Then we've got the market analysis. So that's researching the trends, the different fashion trends, different supply and demand of what's going to be necessary, and then taking that into the textiles of what needs to be produced in order to feed that. Because every new fashion trend is going to make, the textile industry has to respond to what's going to be popular. And then textile sales reps are, when they have a new fabric or they have something that they're working on, then they're going to take that to the fashion industry and say, look at this cool new fabric we created. You could use this for these types of clothing and things like that. So one example I could think of with the sales representatives would be, you've probably seen or heard commercials for cotton. There's a little jingle, there's a song about cotton and the fabric of our lives. So that would be something that came from these textile sales representatives. All right, so now in the apparel industry. So this is the actual clothing that we get from the textiles, and we create the articles of clothing. The women's fashion obviously is the biggest part, the biggest chunk of this industry. But the especially the younger teen male side of the fashion industry is starting to catch up and being a little more popular. But definitely women historically, when you look at the percentages, women's fashion is the highest percent of this market. So we've got apparel designers and manufacturers and fashion designers and a few different options in this industry as well. So apparel designers. So what they do is they create their own unique designs. So they're going to be from start to finish. They're going to create the idea of what they want it to look like. They're going to cut and sew everything. They're going to maybe sell their line to different merchandisers. So apparel designers really do the whole thing from start to finish. And then product developers do not create the designs. So they would get a design from an apparel designer, and then they would just be the ones that are actually creating it. So if you've got something for like a big chain store, like Walmart or something like that, has their own brand. So there's not somebody sitting there creating every shirt as their own unique design. They're just going to take the design that's given to them from wherever they got the design from, and then producing the shirt or whatever it is, the garment. And then we've also got the management side of it, which is not the hands-on, actually sitting at the sewing machine making the items of clothing. But again, this is like the business aspect of it, of overseeing the process, working with human resources, the hiring, the staffing, all of the managerial side of it. So this would be people that have a little more of the business experience, but they also have experience and education in the apparel industry. So that would be someone with both sides. You'd have to have managerial experience or know-how, business know-how, and also knowledge of textile and apparel. So that's it for this chapter. Again, clothing is an important part of our everyday lives, and that is part of what contributes to the quality of life. That goes back to that mission statement of the AAFCS.